What is good, Osiris here? Stuck in the middle, voting rights groups skipping Biden's speech in Georgia over inaction. Stacey Abrams, the Democratic candidate for governor and has heavy sway in the Democratic Party, also will not be there, but she cited a scheduling conflict. In the world of politics, when you have a scheduling conflict, when the president and the vice president are making one of their most important speeches, that means they're toxic. That is a clear and open separation. I do not want to be associated with you or her. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this before. Mrs. Abrams had a scheduling conflict, an aide said on Monday. She expressed support for the event on Twitter. It's so embarrassing. But several leading voting rights and civil rights groups are pointedly skipping the speech, protesting what they denounced as months of frustrating inaction by the White House, which they said showed that Mr. Biden did not view Republican attacks on voting rights with sufficient urgency. What are these attacks? For example, I did a video on the Georgia laws, and these are the egregious, scary Jim Crow attacks, some of them, that the Democrat Party is scared of. As usual, there's a lot of nonsense flying around with the Georgia voting law. Let's start with three things. Number one,
but the president called out one new provision that forbids providing food and water to voters waiting in line.
This is nothing but punitive, designed to keep people from voting. You can't provide water for people about to vote. Give me a break.
Joe Biden just said it there, talking about you can't bring water to people waiting in line to vote. It sounds inhumane, especially in Georgia, where it can get very hot, even around election time. So let's see what the bill says. The bill actually says that there's a limitation of 150 feet for people who I call people holding signs, partisan people. So they're not bipartisan. They're very partial to a party or a certain act or law that they want to get passed. So they're saying that if you are not impartial, basically, that's my words, you are not allowed to hand out water. For me, I'm not big on it either way. Yes, it does favor Republicans, but it's not like election workers can't give out water. It's not like the people with signs, like when you go vote, you see the people with their benches and signs and they're trying to get you to vote Biden or whatever else. They could have buckets of water there for people to walk up and take it and then go in line. I mean, is that what we're really going to be haggling about? Number two, voters will now have less time to request absentee ballots. Really? Okay. I mean, when you look at 2020, 65% voted for Biden, 34% for Donald Trump of absentee ballots. So you can see why Republicans are trying to tighten that a little bit there. I mean, it's not a huge thing either. Stricter ID laws. I've heard some people bring this up. Previously, Georgia law required voters to simply sign their absentee ballot applications. So all you had to do was sign it. And you know how signatures are. I just go like that. I mean, I don't even look at it anymore. So it's kind of hard to see, is that really the right signature? The signature, I'm actually against the signature because with the way that I sign my name, they probably would throw my ballot out and I wouldn't even know because it's so different. So now when you're mailing in your ballot, on the outside of the envelope, you have to provide the number from the driver's license or state ID. So you don't have to have a driver's license. State ID is free. Say you don't have either one of those. You can put your last four digits of your social security number. You can use a passport. You can use an employee photo ID from government. You could use a current utility bill, bank statement, paycheck from the government. Even if you have none of those things, you could still file a provisional ballot and then prove it later. So I'm not sure what else you want as far as the ID. I mean, Democrats can play the number game because the more ballots they mail out, the better. Democrats would be fine with voting ballots literally falling out of the sky and littering the whole state of Georgia. The more people who vote, that's better for Democrats. And I will agree, that's a stronger position to be in. The Democrats are the strong arm of the establishment. It's not a shock. That's just the way it is. So, um, do you think Dems would be fighting though if the roles were reversed and more votes favored Republicans? Do you think Democrats would be fighting for more votes? I'm gonna leave that up to everyone else to answer because that's not even going towards my main point here. So stick around, stick around. I'm gonna get to it. Republicans, they've had the majority in Georgia, in the Georgia House since 2005. In the Senate, they've had the majority since 2003. Republicans have. So it's a Republican state, has a Republican governor. You would expect the state voting laws to reflect that, right? Like these are clearly biased laws. And there was a great article in the New York Times, believe it or not. But it was a great article on the differences and their reasoning as to why this favored Republicans. And I agreed with a lot of it. But wouldn't you expect that? Like in California, I don't expect the state legislators to come up with laws that would favor Republicans. It's a Democrat state. So what are we doing here? Does that sound like Jim Crow to you? So I understand that negatively affects Black people more, or people of colors, the terms they're using now. Yeah, because most of them are voting Democrat and Republicans don't want that. So is that race or is that we just want power? I'm going to leave that up to everyone to decide. I think you might know where I feel. I don't see any evidence that it has to do with race, and I don't understand why race has to even come into it. So you need a vaccine passport and an ID to dine in restaurants in Los Angeles County, DC, Boston, New York. But you don't need an ID to vote for the tyrants who impose all these restrictions. Think about that. I want somebody to reconcile that for me. Beginning November 4th, this was back in November, the city of Los Angeles requires proof of full V against C-19 to dine in this store. But you don't need an ID. If the voting laws pass that they want, you would not need a voting ID to vote. But you would need one to get a Starbucks coffee and dine in. They said the dangers of inaction, some advocates say, extend beyond voting rights, as legislation in several states has shifted authority over election administration to partisan office holders. Yeah, you guys, that's kind of the point. You have California, you have Oregon, and the red states are the red states. This is scary stuff because I don't know where it ends. You ever heard about a cat that's cornered? If a cat's cornered, and that's what's happening in these midterms, the Democrats are getting cornered. They will do anything to get out of that corner. Let me know what you think. Take care.